Welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. This is Sarah Jack. Wednesday, August 3rd, 1692, was a busy day for the court of Oyer and Terminer in Salem. George Burroughs and Mary Esty faced grand jury hearings, and Martha Carrier was tried, having been indicted back on July 1st. Mary Post was arrested in Rowley this morning and transported to the court in Salem. Anne Robert and John Swan of Andover filed a complaint against Mary Clark of Haverhill. The two men accused Clark of afflicting Timothy Swan, Robert's son, and John's brother. They also accused her of hurting Mary Walcott and Ann Putnam Jr. of Salem Village. Dudley Bradstreet, Justice of the Peace in Andover, issued a warrant for Mary Clark's arrest. Mary Warren testified that in July, she had been taken to a witch's Sabbath by John Alden, Elizabeth Carey, and Ann Toothaker. At this gathering, former Salem Village minister George Burroughs brought her bread and wine. According to Mary, when she refused to eat and drink, George did most grievously torment her by pressing her to sign the devil's book. George Burroughs was presented to the grand jury on 4 counts today for supposedly afflicting Mary Walcott, Mercy Lewis, Elizabeth Hubbard, and Ann Putnam Jr. during his initial examination on May 9, 1692. Ann Putnam Jr. testified that on the 20th of April in 1692, at evening, she saw the apparition of a minister, at which she was grievously affrighted and cried out, "Oh, dreadful, dreadful! Here is a minister come! What? Are ministers witches too? Whence come you, and what is your name? For I will complain of you, though you be a minister, if you be a wizard." After the usual tortures and offer of the devil's book, Anne said, "It was a dreadful thing that he which was a minister that should teach children to fear God should come to persuade poor creatures to give their souls to the devil." George's specter allegedly confessed to Anne that he had murdered his first 2 wives through witchcraft and had also killed Deodat Lawson's wife and many soldiers in Maine. He told her he had made several people witches, including Abigail Hobbs. Thomas Putnam, Peter Prescott, and Robert Morey corroborated Anne's testimony and said they had heard her say the things she testified to saying. Having heard the new testimony, as well as previous witness statements, the grand jury returned each indictment billa vera true bill. They declared that there was sufficient evidence to send George Burroughs to trial. Next, Mary Esty was presented to the grand jury on 2 counts for supposedly afflicting Mercy Lewis and Elizabeth Hubbard during her examination on May 23, 1692. Mary Warren testified that Mary Esty had afflicted her either in person or as an apparition. Mary Esty also afflicted Mercy Lewis, Elizabeth Hubbard, Mary Walcott, and Ann Putnam Jr. The grand jury declared that the prosecution had presented enough evidence for Mary Esty to be tried. Following the 2 grand jury hearings, the trial jury considered the case of Martha Carrier, who was charged with 2 counts of witchcraft for supposedly afflicting Mary Walcott and Elizabeth Hubbard during her examination on May 31, 1692. Benjamin Abbott, Samuel Preston, Thomas Putnam, John Putnam Jr., and Allen Toothaker all gave testimony against Martha Carrier. Previous testimony was also read and affirmed in court by the witnesses. In his testimony, Benjamin Abbott said that in March 1691, the town of Andover granted him some land near Thomas Carrier's property. When the land was surveyed, Thomas' wife, Martha, grew angry and supposedly told Benjamin that she would stick as close to him as the bark stuck to the tree. Per Benjamin, Martha Carrier also declared that he would repent of receiving the land before 7 years came to an end, and she told him that Dr. Prescott would never cure him. Benjamin also reported that Martha told Ralph Farnham Jr. that she would hold Benjamin's nose as close to the grindstone as ever it was held, since his name was Benjamin Abbott. Sometime after these words were spoken, Benjamin experienced swelling in his foot and pain in his side. A sore was lanced by Dr. Prescott, and a good deal of fluid drained out. After 6 weeks of this, Benjamin got one sore after another in his groin, which Dr. Prescott lanced. Benjamin Abbott felt like he was almost at death's door until Martha Carrier was arrested, after which he began to recover and his sores healed. Benjamin's wife, Sarah Abbott, testified that her husband had indeed been afflicted, not only physically but also financially, as his livestock were affected. Some of them even died suddenly and strangely, and the Abbotts could not think of any natural reasons for the deaths. Sometimes cattle would come out of the woods with their tongues hanging out of their mouths in a strange and frightening manner. In her deposition, Phoebe Chandler said that on Sunday, May 15th, during the singing of the psalm, Martha Carrier grabbed her by the shoulder, shook her, and asked where she lived. Then, on May 28th, Phoebe's mother, Bridget, sent her on an errand to take beer to people working in the lot. On her way, she heard a voice in the bushes and thought it sounded like Martha Carrier. However, she did not see anyone around. 2 hours later, Bridget Chandler sent Phoebe on the same errand again. This time, Phoebe was on her way home when she heard the voice again coming from above her. The voice declared that Phoebe would be poisoned in 2 or 3 days. The Friday following the voice's threat, half of Phoebe's right hand was swollen, as was part of her face. This condition persisted for several days, and since then Phoebe had felt a great weight on her chest and legs, to the extent she could hardly go anywhere. On Sunday, July 31st, accused witch Richard Carrier looked earnestly upon Phoebe in the morning worship service. Immediately, Phoebe felt her hand begin to pain her greatly. She had a strange burning in her stomach and could not hear any of the prayer or singing until the last 2 or 3 words of the psalm were sung. Bridget Chandler confirmed her daughter's testimony. Andrew Foster testified that in May of 1692, he was at Thomas Carrier's house, quote, saying that he had heard that when Timothy Osgood and his brother Samuel went to Salem the other day, they going to Lieutenant Ingersoll's, one of the afflicted maids looked out and asked what they brought the 3 women for. Before they asked what women, the maid, who is not identified in the testimony, told them Martha Carrier, Mary Toothaker, and Margaret Toothaker were going into Ingersoll's house. The maid then told them Martha Carrier was sitting on the table by them. Then she had a fit, and her neck was twisted almost all the way around. When Andrew got to this point in his story, Martha Carrier said, "It is no matter if her neck had been quite off if she said I was there." Samuel Preston told the court that in June 1690, he had an argument with Martha Carrier, as he often did. Soon after this disagreement, Samuel had a cow die strangely, being cast upon her back with her heels up. She had been healthy previously. Within a month, Samuel had another argument with Martha Carrier, and she told him that he had lost a cow lately and it would not or should not be long before he should lose another. Soon, another healthy cow lay down and died. Thomas Putnam and John Putnam Jr. testified that on May 31st, during Martha Carrier's examination, the afflicted persons were tormented dreadfully. If it hadn't been for one of the magistrates ordering Martha to be bound, the Putnam men believed that some of the afflicted would have died. And several times after May 31st, the men saw the afflicted persons tormented as if all their bones would have been disjointed or bodies twisted all to pieces. They heard the afflicted say that Martha Carrier was the one torturing them. Allen Toothaker testified against his aunt, Martha Carrier. He confirmed what Benjamin Abbott had said about Martha's alleged threats. In March 1692, Allen had a fight with his cousin Richard Carrier. During the fight, Allen fell flat on his back. When he yielded to Richard, he saw the specter of Martha rise from his chest and vanish, as if she had been the one to push him over. During King William's War, Allen Toothaker was injured and could run a knitting needle 4 inches deep into the wound. After Martha was arrested, he healed. Allen also said that when he and his aunt had a squabble, she clapped her hands together and said he should get nothing by squabbling. Within a day or 2 of this, he lost a yearling and then a cow. Then there was another disagreement and a second yearling died. He blamed Martha for the deaths. All of this against Martha Carrier was sworn to at trial, and the jury had heard enough and said there was a cause for Martha Carrier to be sentenced to death, the penalty for witchcraft under English and Massachusetts law. Martha was convicted and would be condemned by the Chief Justice of the Court of Oyer and Terminer, William Stoughton. She was hanged with 4 other innocent people on August 19th, 1692.